This is Tom Fox. Welcome to the newest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network. This podcast is entitled Compliance and Coronavirus. As the voice of compliance, I wanted to start a podcast which will help bring clarity and sanity to the field of compliance, the compliance practitioner, and the entire compliance profession during this worldwide health and healthcare crisis. Taking up a wide variety of topics, including working from home during the coronavirus pandemic, the role of the board of directors, the role of the supply chain, why you must continue to do compliance during this time, and a wide variety of other topics. If you have a topic that you would like covered on compliance and coronavirus, please let me know. I'd be happy to do an episode on this podcast. We'll post on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for the foreseeable future as we navigate our way through this incredible health crisis. Now, a word from our sponsor, SAI Global. With the coronavirus and COVID-19 pandemic continuing to change rapidly, trust and integrity are paramount to business continuity preparedness. SAI Global is here to help compliance and risk professionals face these challenges, including unprecedented business impacts from employee well-being to disrupted supply chains. SAI 360 is a cloud-first software and modern ethics and compliance learning platform designed to help you effectively navigate risk from every perspective. To learn more about how you can protect your business operations and workforce during these uncertain times, visit saigglobal.com/risk for free resources, expert guidance, and industry-leading technology. In our inaugural episode, we visit with Sean Freidlin, Director of Product Marketing at SAI Global, who talks to us about how to successfully work from home. I know you will enjoy this episode and this entire series. Thanks. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and welcome to our inaugural episode. Today, I have with me Sean Freidlin. Sean's a good friend and a friend of my various podcasts, and he wrote last week an incredibly prescient article that I think it trended extremely well on LinkedIn and actually is very appropriate for what we may all be going through over the next 6 to 12 to 8 weeks. So, Sean, first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Tom. It's good to be back, especially amidst these kind of scary and uncertain circumstances.
So, Sean, over the past several years, certainly since I've known you, you worked from home and you put in writing what you called 4 tips to successfully working from home in your LinkedIn post. So I would just ask you to walk us through them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started working at SAI Global around 4 years ago. And when I started working there, I started working remote full time. That was kind of part of the job offer, was that I could work from home. I'd never done that before. So it was really a new kind of learning curve and a new kind of environment. At the time, I had a desk in my bedroom in my apartment in Brooklyn. Now I'm fortunate to have a home office, but it struck me that a lot of people, because of coronavirus and COVID-19 now, are going to be working remote, working from home for the first time. A lot of organizations are kind of taking that action as a business continuity best practice to protect, the safety of their business and the health of their employees, and encouraging people to stay home and work from home. And that's a pretty drastic change. There's a lot of organizations, huge global industry leaders that are really enacting that relatively quickly. And there are a lot of implications to that decision. But really, for the most part, when I wrote this article, 4 tips to successfully work from home, I was thinking about, what are all these people going to be going through their first few days or weeks? And I had that experience already, so I wanted to share some advice with them. So for me, really, there were 4 things that stood out. They were: get outside, act as if, develop a flexible schedule, and find your comfort zone. And I'll talk about each of those a little bit, because I think that, aside from some basics that you might think are somewhat obvious when it comes to working from home, these were the things that really stood out to me that you might not feel immediately, oh, clearly I'm going to do this. This is a really kind of obvious thing. It took me a little bit of time to kind of figure these things out. It's important to obviously acknowledge everyone is different. Everyone has their own kind of schedules and habits and routines. And, this advice isn't uniform across the board, but I think that if most people, it'll help most people, I think, adjust to this kind of new office culture that they're kind of building for themselves in real time.
Sean, could you start off by just kind of reviewing the basics and then go into the specifics that you found were so helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think anytime you work from home, first things first, you really want to have a strong Wi-Fi connection, right? Try to set up a desk if you have one. Basic hygiene is always a good start, right? If you're going to wake up and roll out of bed, take a shower, it'll wake you up. I think that's kind of what most people say in a lot of the articles I've read already. A lot of people are suggesting, make sure you dress up as if you're going to work. I don't personally agree with that advice. I used to dress business casual going into the office at my old jobs. I don't wear a button down and dress pants every day to work anymore. I personally, usually wear something comfortable, and I'll talk about that kind of comfort level as one of my best practices as we dive into it. And that also really helps, save on dry cleaning, which is a nice kind of benefit. So I think, hygiene, kind of set up a desk of some nature, have strong Wi-Fi. I think one of the things that's really important is to just be cognizant of the rules and values that your company expects you to conduct yourself with. That's part of my act as if section. It might seem obvious to some, it might not seem obvious to others. So why don't we kind of dive into each of the 4 that I wrote and explore those a little bit more. I'm pretty grateful that right now it's the most popular thing I've ever published on LinkedIn. Over 3,000 people have read it. So hopefully this helps a few more people discover it, and it's helpful for other people.
Sean, before you do that, one thing that struck me, and the reason I ask you to detail some of the basics, is the thing I think that struck me most about your article was not 4 tips, but 4 tips to successfully. And that the things you put in there in your article that you're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into really allow you as an in-home worker, whether that's working from home, whether that's quarantine, whether that's self-isolation or just social distancing, allows you to take your work performance up to a new level. So with that, why don't you tell us about the 4 you laid out that worked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think another one of those tips, Tom, that might seem obvious, but not necessarily going to help you be more successful is, if you're in a group meeting, go on mute, right? Those are kind of best practices that you would adopt regardless. So I didn't really write about those particular things. First and foremost, I wrote about getting outside. I think that when you work from home and you start working from home, you feel this pressure to start working right away. You wake up, you're like, well, I'm kind of at work now. And you don't really know how to create that barrier between work and your personal life yet. So you're just rolling out of bed and you're going to go to work. For me, I have a dog, so he helps me kind of live this best practice and value. But I think it's essential to get outside. And at first, when I started, I didn't necessarily do that. And I felt stir crazy. I felt like I was confined and trapped. And you don't have that commute anymore in the morning, which I think is a good thing. You lose some of those things that force you to get outside. So you have to get outside and get some fresh air just to break up your day. I typically will wake up in the morning, make some coffee, take a short walk, with or without the dog, and then at lunch, and then at the end of the day. And I almost use it to divide up projects, get some fresh air, clear my mind. It's really easy when you're working from home, especially because you're not going into a conference room anymore. There are a lot of things that you might be doing otherwise that you're not doing. So you literally might be at your desk, sitting down, staring at your computer for 8+ hours continuously. If you get outside, it'll make your day a lot easier. Be conscious of the fact that, if you are in an area with a high kind of contamination of COVID-19, you want to practice that social distancing. You don't necessarily want to go take long walks outside because that's not really a healthy or best practice thing to do. But even if you just pop outside of your apartment or your home for a minute and don't take a walk, but just get that fresh air, I think it's a really helpful way to kind of free your mind, kind of step away from the computer, get a little exercise even, but it's really something that I used to not do as much. And now I get outside every day, multiple times. And it's really helped me manage work better. step outside and kind of get away from my projects and have a little bit of a buffer between work and just make the day kind of feel a little bit more complete.
Sean, I really was also struck by your section entitled As If. What did you mean there?
Yeah. So I think that some of the common practices that you'll hear other people talk about are these things aligned with your kind of like professional conduct, staying professional, right? I think when people say, get up and dress like you're going to work, they're trying to really embrace that act as if lifestyle, pretend like you are still going into the office when you work from home. When I think about acting as if, it was really aligned with this idea of if you're home, you might not, and especially if you're new to working remote, it might not feel like you're at work yet. So you might think that, oh, I'll just throw the TV on and, watch the news in the morning while I kind of onboard and kind of check my email. Or I might take a walk and kind of, go to the coffee shop and hang out a little bit. I think that it's really important to kind of align the behavior mentally and physically that you would have in the office with how you behave at home. And by just kind of getting on that mental wavelength, I know that these are the values or policies that my company expects me to behave and conduct myself with. If you keep that up at home, it just mentally will help you feel like you're in a professional working environment. So do I wear a suit or do I dress up for work when I get to work? No, I usually throw on a t-shirt and gym shorts, to be honest, or, jeans and a hoodie. I prefer to dress comfortably. But I think that when I act as if, I know that when I go to the coffee shop and get coffee, I'm going to treat that person with respect as if I'm on the job and they know where I work, right? When I post on social media from home, I'm still going to act as if I'm a representative of my company, even though I feel like I'm in my home, apartment and I'm just kind of hanging out. So I think it's really important to create that mindset where you align your behavior at home with the same behavior as you would conduct yourself with at the office, even though you're not at the office.
Why is developing a flexible schedule so key?
Yeah, Tom, one of the biggest things that are a challenge for many people, I think, when they start working from home is time management. And it's physically managing your time because your schedule is going to be fundamentally different. Your routine that you've maybe embraced for years, your morning commute, the kind of things you do before you get to work, after you get to work are gone, right? So you're inherently more free and have more free time, and your schedule is fundamentally less structured because you've removed some of those kind of cornerstone activities and behaviors to your day that you've embraced for a long time. But I think that what really happened to me is, you don't have those face-to-face communications or relationships. You don't have those routines that you're used to. So you have to kind of build new routines into your day, but you also have to embrace the fact that how you spend your time is fundamentally going to be different. Our colleague and friend, Matt Kelly, he commented on my post and he said, I've been working from home for years. And one of the things that really struck me is how much distractions there are when you're actually in the office. And when you're at home, your schedule can be different and even shorter. He said that he could work 6 hours from home and be more productive than he would be 8 hours in an office. And for me, what I really did, and I agree with that statement, is I find that once I figured out my schedule and my routine, I could be more productive at home. And the time I spend, that 8-hour kind of requirement, your 9 to 5, isn't really as defined as it used to be. And you have that flexibility in your schedule to really be productive when you feel productive. You're not obligated to do work at certain hours because of the hours that you're at work. Right? I think that when you're home, you have that freedom and flexibility to really create a schedule that works for you. Obviously, there are meetings that you have to attend. There are things that you're obligated to do based on your calendar and your responsibilities. But without the kind of oversight of people watching you or the social pressures of being in an office setting to do certain things at a certain time, you have more flexibility. So for me, I wake up at 7 a.m., I take a walk, I immediately check my email, even though it's 7 a.m., right? I'm working when I wake up. I check to see if I have any fire drill emails that I need to respond to really quickly. I kind of clear those off. And then from 8 to around 11:30, I am focused solely on one really big project that I'm trying to accomplish that day or that week. Then I'm going to, typically maybe at your desk, you feel like you need to eat lunch really quickly. You have a half hour for lunch maybe. I kind of take like a 60, 75-minute lunch break. I'll eat lunch. I'll go back outside. I'll do a little bit of reading. I really try to divide up my day. And then the afternoon from like 1 to 3 or 4, I'll do another burst of focused work. I'll unwind by kind of reviewing lower priority emails, kind of setting myself up for the next day. And then I'll kind of at 6 p.m. kind of, call it a day. I'll get out of my office and I'll go to another room in the apartment, or I'll watch something on TV to really indicate like, okay, work is over. You need to kind of have that divide between work and home when you're working from home. But everyone's schedule could be different, right? I think some people, if you have kids or if you have other responsibilities where now, especially if everyone is home because they're quarantined, how you manage that time is going to be different. I think you need to embrace that flexibility and think about scheduling certain things throughout the day that are going to help you be more productive so that you could just follow those kind of self-imposed criteria for success that align with your own behavior.
And Sean, you concluded with a section entitled Find Your Comfort Zone. Why is that so important to having a successful work from home experience?
Yeah, I think it's really important to just kind of mentally and physically be comfortable when you're at home, because it's going to help you be more productive and settle into that routine. So I think that, for me at first, I had this desk. It was in my bedroom. I kind of, needed to get out and escape that. I wasn't super comfortable just sitting there for 8 hours. So I think that really, you're adapting to a new kind of routine for your day. And it's important to just figure out in that routine where you're most comfortable and where you're going to be most productive. At work, you're sitting at your desk, you're in this office, you're used to that office. At home, you might find your kitchen table a better place than your bedroom, or there's not a TV in this one specific room. So even though it's not my office, maybe I'll set up a table and a chair there and try that, right? You really need to experiment a little bit to find where you're most comfortable. And for me, that comfort zone also includes not wearing, a button down and khakis, right? I'm more comfortable personally, and I'm more productive because I've tested it over the years, wearing more comfortable clothing, right? So I think that you need to find that comfort zone. You also need to be comfortable, operating in a very kind of risk-conscious way, right? You can't be overly comfortable where you're exposing yourself to risk. So think about if you go to that coffee shop and are using the Wi-Fi there, you might be comfortable, but you're also really in a low privacy environment where you might be exposing those really, sensitive documents that you're working on for work on your computer to a hacker, right? So I think that the comfort zone goes both ways. You need to be comfortable. You need to be conscious of your environment. And you need to think about your actions and your behaviors in a way that really, don't put you at risk, don't lower your own productivity, and don't kind of compromise the values of your company. But ultimately, you're for the first time really in probably a long time in this environment where you have less supervision and less oversight of your behavior directly and indirectly than ever before. So communication is really important, but also being comfortable with that fact and kind of getting in a groove where that you're really doing the work that you need to do is super important. Because at the end of the day, all that matters when you're working from home is that you get your work done. When it happens, how it happens, where it happens isn't as defined. It's up to you, and you need to make those decisions on your own, and it's going to be different for everyone. But you just need to find that comfort zone so that you're in that productive groove and you could still do your job really well.
Well, Sean, that's a great summary of your article and actually further expansion. I've been visiting with Sean Freidlin, the Director of Product Marketing at SAI Global, on his really helpful LinkedIn post entitled 4 Tips to Successfully Working from Home. We're going to link to it in the show notes, so check it out. Sean, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of Compliance and Coronavirus. If you have any questions or you have a topic you would like explored on this podcast, please shoot me an email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. Also, as a call to action, I would ask if you could to please tell one of your friends about the podcast so we can spread the word out about the newest podcast on the Compliance Podcast Network. Also, if you would leave us a rating on iTunes or a review, it would greatly help get the word out about this most important podcast over the next several months. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you'll join me for our next episode of Compliance and Coronavirus. This podcast is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.